What's up? I'm Jacob Blitzo, your Elixir Mentor, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Elixir Mentor Podcast. This is where we discuss everything related to Elixir, from interviews with enthusiasts, pioneers in the community, to innovative projects and libraries shaping Elixir's future. So let's get started. Today, I'm thrilled to have Bruce Tate joining us. Bruce is a renowned author, trainer, and founder of Groxio, a company dedicated to providing high-quality Elixir, Phoenix LiveView, and OTP training. With his best-selling books and extensive speaking experience, Bruce has been instrumental in educating and inspiring the Elixir community. So Bruce, welcome to the show, and thank you so much for being here.
Oh, it's great to be here. I'm Bruce. I'm your Elixir mentor.
So, to kick things off, first of all, your books are some of the first books that I dove into when I was first learning Elixir, and I was kind of started a project, so I was learning as I built, and your books helped get me started. So I'm very appreciative of that. And now I know you weren't always into the Elixir space. What were the events that kind of pushed you? Because I know you wrote Java books, Ruby on Rails books, and then what got you, what got Elixir on your radar?
Yeah, so the Java books are a funny story. I was just at a conference with Sasha Urich, and it was Kobe in San Francisco. There were a lot of great people there. And he was giving a Java talk at an Erlang conference. I mean, that takes a lot of guts, right? And then I figured out how he was going to do this in the middle of his talk. He said, well, I can't answer your Java questions, but he works at a publisher with a publisher called Manning Publications. Excellent publisher. And he wrote a book called Elixir in Action. But he put up this chart that said, the screen that said, if you have any Java questions, you should ask Bruce. And he put up like my Manning, 15 years ago bestseller. And then everybody for the rest of the conference was asking me about Java questions, right? So I did that for a while. And so for a while, I was thinking about programming and programming language adoption. And I moved out of Java because it was too verbose and ceremonial. And I moved into Ruby just to get that developer productivity. And it gave me exactly what I was looking for. And then, like everybody else, as the world moved on, as the world tends to do, requirements got more and more difficult for the Ruby programming language. So I'm not going to say it's a bad language, but it wasn't the right language for the problems that I was going to attack anymore. And I had just joined a startup, and we built out a lot of Ruby infrastructure. So I was afraid, and somebody wrote a paper called "The Free Lunch is Over," and I encourage your listeners to seek it out. But it basically, if you boil it down, it says if you were to take your multi-core computer, smash it open with a hammer, don't do that. But if you did, the insulators between the circuits would be 3 to 7 atoms thick, and that means that you can't cram any more on a chip. And so what you have to do is, rather than making one chip bigger, you make a lot of small ones and you stack them up like plates in the pantry. But when you do that, what has to happen is the languages have to walk and chew gum at the same time. They have to be concurrent. And I knew that Java could do it, but only if the programmers got smarter and smarter. And Ruby could do it, but only one process at a time. So this was a LAMP-based model where everything ran on one process, and you would run out of resources. So we were at a dead end, and I wanted to know what was happening. And I saw, from my perspective, some of my mentors, some of the cool kids were leaving the room, and I wanted to know where they were going. So I wrote a book called 7 Languages in 7 Weeks. I wrote it out of fear. And Jacob, if you were to ask me, if there's one thing to do to make a book a bestseller, I would say it is not to write it out of fear. This time it worked out, just a happy chain of accidents. So my publisher was a wonderful woman, the editor at the publisher. So I worked with Dave Thomas, and at the time it was Andy Hunt also at the Pragmatic Bookshelf. And so Dave hooked me up, and we worked on a book together called 7 Languages in 7 Weeks. And he hooked me up with an editor called Jackie Carter. I still work with her today. Wonderful woman, and she deserves, gosh, a significant percentage of the credit for my books. They're wonderfully readable. But anyway, she said, "Hey, we're getting pretty far into this 7 languages book, and I know you're writing it without a lot of skill and functional languages, and you're just bringing people with you. Why don't we get it out for a review early?" I said, "That's okay." And so I didn't think much of it. And 3 weeks later, I got this review back and skipped ahead as you do with reviews, and it was just marked up. It was like solid red. I mean, Jacob, this thing was like your third grade like writing assignment after you like spun it out in like 5 minutes, and it was just like all red ink. And
your chest just sinks a little.
Yes. You know the one.
Yep.
But I looked at the name on it, and it was Joe Armstrong. Joe Armstrong, creator of the Erlang language. There's a third language in it. And I was thinking back, my brain was spinning, right? I was thinking, Ruby, he's not going to have anything to say about Ruby. I looked at the chapter and he didn't. I said, well, oh my God, what did I do to Erlang? And he looked at it and he said, I get the sense that this author understands Erlang very well. Not true, right? I didn't know Erlang at all. This was my first pass at it, but I had used his programs for examples, right? I had built on his examples. And so he was violently agreeing with himself. So what that left was Prolog, right? And what you might not know is that Joe Armstrong was a huge fan of Prolog. And he told me, he told Jackie, look, this book is in trouble. You are butchering my baby. He didn't say it like that, right? But you're killing Prolog. You can't release this book. It is like red. This is wrong. Bad idea, bad instruction. And so I just followed my pride, and I reached out to him. I said, hey, help me make this a great chapter. And so we kind of struggled with this for a little bit, and he just rolled up his sleeves. He started helping me. He didn't know me from anybody. I was a nobody with, just kind of mediocre Java titles. My best seller was my worst book. And he stayed with me. And there was a moment when he said, okay, so what problem do you want to solve? And I said, I want to solve a Sudoku. And he said, let's do it. So first enter the rules of the game. So I did. I came back. I said, well, I don't know where to go from here. I've entered the rules. And he said, have you tried to run it? And I ran it. And he started laughing. And Prolog started spitting out the answers. And he's laughing. He said, you just had your first Prolog moment. And I said, Joe, I think I did. And, from then on, we were friends. And he wrote the foreword for that book. And that's how I got started in functional programming.
What year was that book? The 7
That book would have been 2010.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. And then, so that was your first taste of functional programming. And then, so let's see, Elixir was first released in 2012.
Right around there, yeah.
Yeah, and then when you wrote your first book with Jose and Chris McCord, how much experience did you have in Elixir at that time? Because that was like 2016-ish?
Yeah. So basically, if we back up a little bit, I wrote 7 languages and was going to go give a talk at Codebeam in Europe. And I knew that Jose was going to be there. And I had I don't know, I think I had maybe Dave Thomas's book, or I had something like a writing manuscript. And I wanted to ask Jose some questions about it. And he didn't know me, right? As far as I knew. And so I went over there. I felt like a stalker, right? I felt like, a complete imposter syndrome. I'm about to give a talk with 4 of the creators of the 7 languages in the book that would be in the room as a complete newbie at all of them.
I can't imagine.
It would be one thing if I wrote about one language and built up like one strong idea about one of those languages. I didn't even have that, right? And so when I was in the room, Joe Armstrong was in the front row. He'd already written the forward. He was smiling and nodding and clapping. And we had like a back and forth going, and it was just wonderful. And then I saw Jose give his talk. I just waited in the back, and just kind of shaking like a small schoolboy, right? And walked up to him, and I said, "Could I ask you?" He says, "I know who you are, Bruce." It's like this is a beautiful, kind, supportive Jose voice, right? And we started talking about Elixir and Elixir adoption. And this was well before 1.0. And I said, "Jose, this language resonates with me in a way that none of the languages in 7 languages in 7 weeks did." And later I found a tweet that, maybe it was a note from Adolfo, who is in the Portuguese community in Brazil, and that community. And he had talked about a podcast where Jose said he read 7 languages in 7 weeks. And he said, and when I read that, Erlang was just shining. And I knew that this was going to be the foundation. So anyway, it turns out that he had seen some of the ideas in that book and just, taken them to heart. Maybe we were just watching the same things, but he put something that was just like right in my wavelength, right? I as a dyslexic, I had a hard time embracing Lisp with all the parentheses. All I saw, you don't go to a dyslexic and say, open left, open left, open left, close right, open left, close right, close right, close right. Now, balance. No. I'm like looking at the parentheses. I never even get to the verbs and the data and the programs. But with Elixir, it had this beautiful Ruby syntax that quieted my brain. It had the crash recovery underneath Erlang, and that kind of quieted my boss's brain. And we had these, closure macros in it, and we had these ideas of lazy processing from Haskell. It was just beautiful. And so we connected over that. And I asked Jose, I said, "Look, Elixir doesn't need to be anything greater right now. I need something for the back end to help me roll up daemon processes to process data. And Elixir can already do that. What do you need to make this successful?" And he told me, "I can't lose Eric Meadows Johnson, who's about to graduate college." And so I said, "Well, let me see what I could do." And I hired him. And I said, "You could have one day," and it really turned out he was working 1.5 or 2 days a week on Elixir. And that was the smallest investment that I could have made. And it made my company, we later sold, I Can Make It Better. That was Paul Janowitz's company, and I had a small stake in that. And it really made the rest of my career. And since then, I've been deeply grateful for Jose for doing that. But one of the things that you might remember is that when Elixir was very young, it had a web server called Dynamo that was just basically playing with some ideas. And I asked Jose how I could start using it. He says, "Don't use that. I'm about to shut it down." I said, "Well, what are you going to do?" And he released a framework that was a web server toolkit. And we talked about this framework, and I even took a shot at it, and you can see it on my GitHub. It's called Switchboard, and it's awful. So, if you want to see how to do Elixir, never read this code base, because it's a newbie with all these misguided ideas shaped around macros and just absolutely horrible.
That's what my first Elixir project looks like too. So.
Yes. But Jose came up with this thing called Plug, right? And, I'm sure your readers know by now, your viewers know, that Elixir is reduced, that GenServer is a reducing framework, that LiveView is a reducing framework, right? You establish the data in a mount, you do a reduction, 1 unit of work to change the state of the server and your handle events, and then you convert that to something that the user can understand in a render. And I call that CRC, construct, reduce, convert. But Plug was just reduce. It was a pipeline of reducers, and that was it. And then so Chris McCord picked that up, and so Jose was at the same conference that I came from, and I was there, and Chris McCord was there at the same time. And that's when they started to say, "Hey, let's work on Phoenix together around this plug framework." And yeah, that's how we kind of all met. And I had the recognition that books play a role, not as valuable a role as the creation of the artifacts, but they play a role in the growth, maybe even more so than I don't know. Documentation is really, really important, but they play another role, right? So with documentation, you can publish a library, you could learn about what an API does. With a book, you can see what the abstractions are, and you can see what the idioms are, and you could really embrace the whole ideas and the soul of a framework. And I think that by having right out of the gate, even though there wasn't an audience for Elixir yet, by myself being able to invest in the book community, we were able to connect people that would not have otherwise been connected.
Yeah, like books are a good onboarding process for something so
Yes.
as technical as learning a new language or framework, right?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, no, I love that. And then so Groxio started off, you're doing more like conference and live events with that, correct? Before it is what it is today?
Yes. So in the past, so Groxio, I guess I should tell that story too, right?
You got to tell all the
Yeah,
stories.
all the stories. Okay. So Groxio started probably 15 years or maybe 10 years before it started, about 15 years ago today. I was at a conference for functional programmers in Europe. And it made me sad because there were 403 people in the room, and 400 were white men. And I know that that's probably not a politically correct thing to say today, but it speaks to me, right? Because I think that if I want to live and work in a world, I want a variety of perspectives, and I selfishly want my business to have access to all of those broad perspectives. There are things that other cultures besides my own bring to the table, and I wasn't okay with that. And I don't know how that's going to resonate. And I'm sorry if I get you in trouble with any kind of politics. That's not my intent. So I didn't want to solve this problem in a in-your-face technical way. What I wanted to do, rather than hold a microphone for a cause, I thought maybe it'd be better to just sneak in and hold open the door, right? So we built a system where you could come learn Elixir, and we would sell 4 to 6 tickets for training, and we would give 1 or 2 away to someone underrepresented. And so Groxio started alongside a mentoring organization to identify underrepresented people that were ready for that professional training. And then we would still sneak somebody like that in there, and they would graduate from the program with not only skills, but peers that could hold open the door.
I love that. I mean, like just getting into like paying for conferences or boot camps or any kind of formal education is expensive. And, I am lucky enough to have always been able to, figure it out or afford to do whatever trainings that I wanted. So, you don't always think about from, the other side or different perspectives of who people absolutely can't afford anything to get, off the ground and running.
Yeah, and we've been able to give away tickets to underrepresented and 9 different countries, I think, and multiples and 3 different ones in 5 different continents. That's pretty remarkable, right?
Yeah, that's amazing.
And it's really wonderful to go to an Elixir conference and see more minority, women, LGBTQ on the stage. I don't have to say anything, right? I could see their name, and I could see that other people in the audience can look up and see someone like them. And that's how you start a fire, Jacob. That's how you start a fire.
Yeah, I love that. And so when did Groxio shift to more of, like what it is, like the learning platform that it is, instead of just helping,
Yeah.
I don't want to say underprivileged. That's not a good word.
Yeah, underrepresented.
Underrepresented. Yeah. So when did it kind of shift into also content, mentoring, and that?
So probably our biggest shift has been in, I want to say right after COVID started, we had a problem that people were saturated with Zoom. And as you recall, we had this time when there was this tremendous crunch of people leaving to support their families because they got buyouts, because for a lot of different reasons, there was a lot of money, a lot of opportunity for people to leave the industry, and they did. And there was more work because a lot of the economy shifted to the gig economy, to online business. And so our business just skyrocketed. And we had this Zoom saturation that people hated Zoom. But what we did was we started to flip the idea of a classroom. And so the first part of that was, I said, I have to talk less. I have to start talking less. I have to stop trying to project my ideas and let people discover ideas. And so we started peeling back away from, if you look at a typical training brochure, you read a list of features as if you're buying like an air conditioner or something. It's weird, right?
Yeah.
It's like, these are the libraries, these are the frameworks. People can read about those. I mean, you could type in Chat GPT and generate all that stuff. That's not the value. The value is in design and abstractions. And that's what we focus on. So we peeled back everything. And I came away with 3 things that I wanted to do. One is to put the steering wheel in the driver's hands. Want to learn to drive? Drive. Right?
Mm-hmm.
The second thing that I did is I picked memorable concepts. I said, Elixir is reduced. That's one of them. Right? In any Groxio class, you're going to see reduce, reduce, reduce until you puke. Do you like Will Ferrell movies?
Oh, I love Will Ferrell. How can you not, right?
So there's I don't remember the name of the movie. It was about a minor league basketball team. Do you remember that one?
No, but
okay. So anyway, we'll find it and drop it in the show notes or whatever. But there was a play that they said, okay, I'm going to tell you now, and we're going to run this play till we puke. And then someday we're going to need it, and we're going to run the puke, right? And that's just the one thing that you know with every fiber in your being, and you know that that's going to get you a basket, right? And so we found out what that play was for Groxio. That was that Elixir is reduce.
Okay.
Right? So we said the concepts that we want are how do you layer a typical inside a typical Elixir application? And we based that on a book I wrote with James Gray. His intelligence, not mine. I basically provided like the glue, and really, I made the concepts relatable. He provided the intellectual firepower on the book, almost all of it. And what I said is that we needed a way to remember a core set of concepts, so that when you put the book down, you could remember it and still apply it. And everybody remembers either the wildebeests, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the wildebeest was do fun things with big loud wildebeest, but that was the beta book, right? And when it came to release it, and we came to write the cover, O'Reilly, who's the distribution partner for the product, said, nope, we have a wildebeest book, right? So we had to think of something else. And James Gray came up with worker bee, right?
Okay.
Some layers. It has cells like gen servers.
I love that
fault.
cover. Yeah.
Yes, it's
Yeah.
the bee book.
Yeah,
It's
it's
the bee
good.
book. Everybody loves that cover.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
anyway, we
and
said,
so the awesome thing
go
about
ahead.
live streams, the movie is semi-pro. Ed's just commented.
Semi-pro. That's exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, thanks to him. That's Ed.
Yeah.
Okay. And so so I based all the material on that do fun things. And I stripped away, my gosh, Jacob, I just tore up all our promotional documentation. I said, what we're going to be, it's going to be four things. We're going to be relatable. We're going to be applicable. We're going to be learn by doing, and we're going to build confidence. And we're going to do that all around these two things, whether you're learning LiveView or Phoenix or OTP or just base Elixir. So we have 4 courses. They all wrap around all of those concepts, and you do them over and over. And the repetition gives you something different, whether you're doing it the first time. You take the OTP class and you say, okay, I understand what a counter is. I understand what a functional core is. I understand why I should do some tests in the core. I understand why I should have this boundary layer that embraces uncertainty and why you can't pipe in there. So you have this functional core where you can do prettier composition. I understand that supervision is about life cycles and not about supervising things. It's really about stopping, starting, restarting things. And then I understand that workers say that I have dependencies and this whole thing is fractal. Right? I have layers of layers, just like a beehive. So that's when COVID forced us to move, and it made our remote trainings more engaging to where most of our customers now, if they have a choice between Zoom and in person, even if everybody's in the same place, they will almost always do the Zoom version because of our ability to leverage the platform and the interaction that we get in that and the freedom that people have to take breaks and relax. The other thing that we did I'm sorry, I cut you off.
Oh no, I was gonna say I love that concept, and I was gonna actually ask, like, have you ran into any difficulties teaching over Zoom? Like, what do you have to overcome? Because you have just like our conversation right now, it's really easy to interrupt when you're just trying to get in because we have a little bit of latency between our voices.
Right. And I do. I mean, I am an interrupter. I am the most impolite conversationalist on the planet because I'm too excited. But we'll leave that for another topic. I think the way that we layer things, I don't talk much in our class, believe it or not.
Okay.
What I do is I introduce some concepts. So we use the 4 A's, right? The first is anchor. And by the way, this is thanks to my friend Sam Moore. I love you, Sam. We took this trip together called the Great Loop, and we were only out of sight of land for 24 hours. And Sam came with me. He didn't know boats, but he knows people, and he just radiates calm and competence. And we wound up crossing the Gulf of Mexico by ourselves, which almost never happens on the Great Loop. And we had a great chance. He got to observe the last part of one of my trainings, and he's a professional trainer. He says, what you're doing is the 4 A's. I said, Sam, what are the 4 A's? He says, well, the first one is anchor, so that you ask everybody where they are, and you make an effort over the course of the training to meet them where they are. And so we do that beginning of every class.
Okay.
The second one is add. So add a concept. And normally this is just Bruce talking and Jacob, you coding, right? It's like, build me a function that's called a constructor.
Okay.
Right? Now build me a reducer. Maybe a constructor takes a string and turns it into an integer. And maybe your reducer adds 1 to it. Right? So prepare to work, do some work. And then maybe the converter converts that to a message that's a pirate pun. The ants is 42, right?
Yeah.
And so that's anchor add. And then we break up into Zoom rooms. If there's a lot of people or if there's a few people, We have 2 or 3 people, and they work together to implement that concept. And then after the application, we talk about it a little bit and say, hey, what do you take out of that? What could you have done better? Right? So then I'm not the teacher anymore. I'm the coach. Everybody likes a coach, right?
Yeah, I love that.
And then the last thing is a way, and this is my chance to send a love letter to the people that hire me. So what we do is we always have at least twice a day, sometimes even more. We have what I call breakthroughs, because everybody can be advancing their education, right? And what I ask people is tangibly, what did you learn that you didn't know coming into this session? And what happens is singular people can say, hey, they pay attention to the things that worked for them in this section, and that solidifies the game. And then it's multiplied by the number of the people on the call. So instead of me summarizing, the team summarizes to each other at a level that's appropriate for each one of them. And my gosh, Jacob, when I started doing this, what happened is that they started taking those breakthroughs back with them into their business. And they not only implemented them, but they told their boss that they were getting the benefits for this particular reason. And it accelerated their effectiveness. And then they wanted to come back and get more training.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's so when you break people, like say you have a large group, what is like the ideal Zoom room size? Is it like 3 or 4 people?
We sell classes up to 8.
Up to 8. Okay.
So our private trainings is up to 6. That's still really small, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we'll break those down for exercises.
Okay.
Right? So sometimes I'll do things that are pretty challenging, right? Like in our OTP class, what we do is before we ever build a gen server, we build a service that's multi-process, that has like recursion, message passing, all that stuff. We build it without OTP.
Okay.
And people hate it. And then I say, turn this into gen server. And even the beginning Elixir developers, if they're on the second day, they can do it.
Yeah.
But this is a stretch, right? So I'll leave the whole room together and they can do it together.
Okay.
And almost invariably they get it, right? And when they get it, they come back and say, that's it. I came in afraid of gen server. And Jacob, that's one of the core abstractions that we have. And it doesn't need to be hard if you go in with a coach. And that's what I do.
I love that. And like, yeah, gen servers, mind blowing when I like finally grasped them and started using them in my projects.
Yeah.
It's pretty awesome. The power you can leverage with processes, especially, you know, in the Elixir space. Like
you can blow things out. So I'm really excited about our project. I want to do Conway's Game of Life, but I want to do it in when every team builds their own Conway's Game of Life server.
Okay.
And then I want to have them all showing on the screen at the same time, maybe even different cadences. And then I want to bring up the observer and kill cells and see them die and come back up with a new pattern.
Oh, that would be cool.
I really want to do this.
Yeah,
I want to do this so bad.
That would be a lot of fun. I love that.
I think that's going to be our one-day Groxio. We're adding one-day intensive workshops, and I'm not sure when they're going to be done. Probably won't be able to get to announce our first one until June.
Okay.
But yeah, that's going to be hot.
So are those going to be like more technical, like very specific skill coverage?
Yeah. So it's basically late beginner, early intermediate, I think is the target, to, well, maybe even late intermediate, so that people will be able to recognize, hey, I want this. I want to know a little bit more about what OTP is doing for me under the hood.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Or, we might do a version with LiveView, but we'll have short intensives. And then that allows us to kind of, our training is really, really cheap. It's just $500 a developer a day. But then you've got to kind of break people out of their jobs. And we think that we could do this either on Friday or Saturday. And we could get great participation. And And this would allow us to basically do like a bigger class to introduce people to Elixir. And Jacob, I've worked on my technical legacy for long enough. I want to kind of work on my social legacy and kind of drive into Elixir adoption, right?
Yeah, there you go. I mean, like that's kind of what Elixir Mentor, my little YouTube channel, has turned into for me, right? We just need more people aware of it and using it.
That's right.
Yeah,
it's coming.
Yeah, yeah. I enjoy how small it is right now, but it also deserves to be in the spotlight.
Yeah, and I think that there's that one of the beautiful things that good mentors do. Anymore, to be a language creator, you can't be a creator and just be a technical person, right? I mean, if you think about it, Jacob, you're asking a language creator to do something that is mind-bogglingly difficult, right? It's not just create a language, but create a language that solves a relevant problem in a way that provides the value that nobody else is providing right now. And then you need to push that through to adoption.
And that's the hardest thing. And you don't monetize a language. Like, it's seriously the hardest thing to do.
The beautiful humans don't monetize the language.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, my goodness, Mats has changed my life. Jose has changed my life because of some of the decisions that he's made around keeping Elixir accessible. But he isn't just a language person. And when I go back and watch some of his talks, the way that man communicates, it's like watching a B.B. King concert, right? It's not just the notes that he play, it's the notes that he doesn't play and what he chooses to emphasize and how he provides artistry around what he does, all with this like humility and grace. I mean, oh my goodness.
It takes a special human to do what Jose is doing. That's for sure.
It does. And Gleam has something going that's pretty special too. And I think that that kind of small group of people for me, between Jose and those languages, Elixir, Gleam, Erlang, and what Joe did for me, and also Ruby. I mean, Mats and Ruby. The guy writes code for beauty, right? I mean, it's even like in the license agreement. It's like it's amazing that the things that the community that Mats was able to put together. But yeah, so I think that today you can't just be that technical brain. You also have to have the marketing side with you. And the sad point is that today, language creators take so much flack from the outside. We've forgotten grace in our technical communications, and we've forgotten to stand up for what's good and right and healthy in a community.
I will say though, as like you see a lot of like the tech community is hard on each other. They're kind of mean, but I don't see that ever in the Elixir community. And maybe I'm naive and I'm blind to it, but I haven't witnessed anything.
It's good.
Yeah.
It's good. And we have to always have these conversations about conversations. As Stu Halloway is one of my favorite. He's he doesn't know it. Well, maybe he does. Stu, if you're listening, hi. He's a bit of a mentor to me, but he gave the greatest conference talk I've ever seen at Gig City Elixir in 2019, maybe. And he called the talk Stewardship Made Practical. And we didn't record it. And we had to, and it was so great. Maggie and I looked at each other and we said, we're going to have to bring him out again to give the talk again so that we could get it down on tape. And we did. And he talked about the cost of keeping stewardship around something like Clojure, and like Elixir and Erlang, and the technical toll that it takes on people, and ways to walk away when, rather than saying, hey, somebody's wrong on the internet, I have to fix that now. And it is a sad skill that we force our language creators to have. And it makes me sad, but like you say, it makes me pleased and grateful for the community that we have. And I'll never pass up the opportunity to talk about this and to, especially if it helps people to reflect just a little bit when you're making that ask. Is it something that I'm entitled to?
Mm-hmm.
Is it something that I can help with? And how can I help with it? Can I help financially? Can I help with requirements? Can I help with documentation? If I'm lifting my fair share, then I can ask. And when I can ask kindly. And when I ask kindly, I can offer my help in places maybe I'm not qualified to help on the type system, and I have something that I would like to see in the language,
Mm-hmm.
but maybe I'm qualified to help somewhere else. And for me, that's my mentoring programs, that's my conferences, that's the books that I've contributed to. But
Yeah. And
we need to think about how to get back.
yeah, no, I agree. And I know we had a good email thread going before this live stream, and like just having your books and everything that you've written has helped me get started in Elixir, and I'm so appreciative of that. And that's my goal now with Elixir Mentor. I can put up YouTube videos and give back a little and hopefully help people avoid the rougher learning curve that I had when I was trying to build a marketplace, a fitness marketplace that also streamed videos. So like, I just want to help people as much as I can. And I was so scared when I hit publish on my first video. I was just prepared. I was like, I'm going to get torn apart. Like I'm an idiot. Who knows? Nothing but amazing feedback from day one. And
It's great.
I'm so thankful for the little community that I'm growing because they're all just awesome human beings.
Yeah, what you're doing is tremendously valuable because adoption means opening different learning channels, right? So at Groxio, we do conferences, we do, we have like a video series, we have subscriptions, we have single product, multi-product, we have training, because different people have different learning channels. And when you can step in those in a meaningful way and build a connection beyond the technology to the people underneath, then our community is better for it.
Yeah, no, I agree. And everyone learns differently. There's going to be people that absolutely hate my style or they'll love my style. And like same with what you're doing, right? So there's always going to be a space for everybody, even if we're all doing the same thing. And you and I have been talking a little bit about partnering in some future endeavors, and
I'd love that.
That can only be a positive to the Elixir community. Like I think it's amazing. It sounds great, and I love the idea of that.
Yeah, I really do too. I think that that the idea of mentoring, putting that front and center is so important because it really is. It's how I got into it. It's how you got into it. Somebody cared enough about us to kind of lead us. And for me, it was Dave Thomas that brought me over to the publishing community. It was Joe Armstrong who helped me, introduced me to some wonderful people and helped me write 7 languages in 7 weeks. It was Jose who was able to kind of walk me through some of the minefields in my early Elixir adoption and join in partnership and writing some books. And you helped me build a little bit of a platform. It was Chris McCord and his stewardship of the Phoenix LiveView framework and the wonderful community that he's built. And and on and on. So I think all of this is really, really important for the Elixir community.
Yeah, I agree. When you're teaching, what is your favorite point? Like, let's say you have someone brand new to functional programming. They're coming from, an object-oriented background. What's your favorite point when people kind of click with like Elixir in general, like maybe with pattern matching or the pipe operator? What do you enjoy the most when they kind of get over the hump of understanding a functional language?
I have 3. One is the work that you can do in the function head with the pattern match. So that's the first.
Mm-hmm.
The second is that Elixir is reduce. When someone understands what I mean when I say Elixir is reduce, I know I've got them. I have them. That's normally with a CRC. So that's one of the two like layering systems that we talk about.
Mm-hmm.
And the third thing is the idea of separating the concerns of creating and managing a life cycle and doing work in a process. That's the supervision, which should be called life cycle management. And
that's too long.
Yeah. Well, like life cycle.
Yeah, no, I'm just teasing.
Yeah. But when my students can, open up that observer and I say, okay, you worked hard to make that, now kill it. They look at me like, what? I said, kill it. They kill it. And I said, did you kill it? And then they try to kill it again and it's not dead. And I said, well, wait a minute. Did that process ID change? Maybe you did kill it. What happened? And then, you see those light bulbs like flashing all over the room. And it's a really cool moment.
It is pretty cool because I feel like I didn't really understand what that piece was of Elixir. Like you always hear the talking points of why you want to use Elixir, right? Concurrency, fault tolerance, but you don't like once you start actually understanding what they are, that was like the eye opener for me. Like how supervision actually functions is
right.
Pretty awesome. It's like autopilot for your application.
Autopilot. I like that. I'm going to steal that from you.
You can steal away.
Consider it stolen.
But yeah, it's a lot of fun. Now, from like someone that I don't think I could ever write a book, by the way, so I can't imagine the amount of work and effort that goes into that. But when I'm creating video content, it's very hard to stay motivated and driven for me. At least like I'll go in like these sprints where I'll be so productive and then I'll hit these moments where it's just like I can't press record. It's just like a very difficult thing for me. And I know like tech burnout, some people don't believe that that's the term that should be used, but I think it's a good term. And what do you have anything that you do in specific to avoid that happening, to constantly be creating and helping and teaching instead of going through lulls where you are super productive and then you drop off?
So early in my career, you might be surprised that I'm not very good as a closer, right? So I have always negotiated too much on price, and that's poison early in the consultancy, and I recognize that. So one of the things that I did was when my consultancy was not in enough demand, I would write a book. And so that would kind of be a natural driver. When you're not doing enough marketing, the price per hour goes down. Mm-hmm. So rather than squeeze, when somebody squeezes, don't drip, right? Instead, do the marketing, and that kind of establishes things again. So I would write a book, and that would force me to work on marketing. That worked really well early in my career. Later in my career, writing did at some point become a chore. It got really political. It got just really sad for me. And that was kind of, what led to our Great Loop trip and some other things like that. But so it took me a while to break out of that. I think that part of it is that it's hard to do well in a niche language that's growing fast, right? Because the demands of, like, we have written that Programming Phoenix LiveView book 6 different times, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of noise around that. And that is not in the top 5 or 6 of my sellers, right? Mm-hmm. So if you break that down, it's been a real grind. It's been good for the community. I'd do it again. Mm-hmm. But that's difficult, right? So I know what you're talking about with tech burnout. So I would say I would have 3 pieces of advice, right? One, if 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 the book is not the right mechanism for you, don't write a book, right? It's a tremendous amount of responsibility, of effort. You're going to write for the first printing, you're going to write the content at least 3 or 4 times, probably longer, right? And second, if you're going to write a book, try to find something that you can write about that doesn't move too quickly. Because if you think about it, the life cycle of a book is 3 to 6 months. And that's about the life cycle of a point release of an Elixir library.
Yeah.
Right? So by the time you are out, it is old.
Yep.
So if you write about something that's generic Elixir or about high-level concepts, that's much better. So try to save your creativity in the book space, for things that are more stable or things that you have a vested commercial interest in. Like a book can move your professional goals with a framework.
Oh, right? I'm sure.
So when the Phoenix book came out, I mean, we've moved a lot of copies of that book, and people understand that Phoenix is one big explicitly created function that starts in the endpoint, that flows in the router, that flows into the controller, right? We worked hard on those concepts and on that mental model. And when people understood that, we got not just more implementations of the Phoenix project on the application level, but also more investment in the Phoenix project on the committer level, right? So that's the second piece of advice. If you have a vested interest in something, then a book might be a good way to go, but don't write a book just to make money, right? And the third bit of advice is know when to put it down and go dream, right? We're people, we have souls. You have to feed your soul. And that means feeding your curiosity. That means feeding the things that are away from not just your working job, not just your open source job, but things that take you out into the world and into community with other people. I mean, work isn't ends, right? Work is a means. Our life is the ends.
Yeah. No, I agree completely, because I was really guilty when I always was an engineer, but I was in the manufacturing world for 10 years of my life. And I did a lot of automation, but I built a lot of the equipment that I designed as well. So I was like swinging wrenches, and it's hard work. Working in a factory and automating things is hard work. And I kind of told myself one day, I was like, you know what? I'm smart enough to not beat myself up physically every day on the job. So I started to teach myself how to program. And then I did a huge move. I moved from Wisconsin to Los Angeles and just kind of dove in head first. But I always had like this weird imposter syndrome. So I would work 80 to 100 hours a week to probably get done what a decent engineer could accomplish in, a 30 or 40 hour a week. But I wanted to overcompensate to not fall short. And that kind of behavior gives you no time for yourself. And so you burn out really, really quick. And I did that for about 4 years. And then I found the Rocky Mountains, and I took up hobbies like backcountry skiing, rock climbing, hiking, and camping. And it helps balance life out a lot.
I love you, man.
Yeah.
So I think it goes both ways too. It's like you can also overcommit not just yourself, but your customers and your charges as a manager, right? So when you can recognize that, sure, you might have to work overtime in spurts, but this cannot be the way. I mean, engineers make mistakes, and it's mistakes that cost you the time much more than the amount of time it costs to write a single line of code, right?
Right.
Quick story. We used to have 9 measured hours of education every day outside of lunch breaks for Groxio courses. We don't do that anymore. Why? Because you can learn more in 6. You can learn more in 6.
There's that fair balance, right?
Yes, 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 especially when you're trying to do something creative. We have a job that's half engineering, half creative. You can't yell at somebody for 12 hours a day yelling, be creative, be creative. You have to make up for that either by allowing more days off or shorter work days. And it doesn't matter which way you go. You're going to pay now or you're going to pay later.
Yeah,
right?
I find I'm most creative and most productive early in the morning and late at night.
Me too.
And it's like the quiet, dark hours of the day, you know? And that's when I can really put my head down and I can be a code factory where like I'm writing good code and I can finish an MVP in 3 days kind of thing if I stick to my creative time frames.
Flow.
Yeah. Yep.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. And then I find I do my editing and kind of like mind numbing work where you just kind of got to you just have to force yourself through it. I do that more during the day when I'm not really in my creative flow.
Yeah.
But yeah, this was an awesome conversation. We have some things to talk about with you though. You have a big conference coming up.
We do.
Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. We have Gig City Elixir. Gig City Elixir is in Chattanooga, Tennessee. And 2 things that you need to know about it. Well, 3 things. The first is that the hospitality is lights out. We really try to focus on loving our speakers so that they can love our attendees, right? The second thing is that we have tremendous density of talent. So Andreas is going to be there. Randall Thomas is going to be there. We have Zach Daniel, the Ash Framework, Brian Hunleth, Creative Nerves, on and on and on. We have just a tremendous, and Brian Hunter, the craziest person I know that, doesn't save things to a database and then walks around his production labs kicking plugs to prove reliability. He gave the second greatest conference talk I ever saw last year. He's going to be there as well. So, and that's the second thing. We have a great density of talent speaking and it's single track. And the third thing is that our attendance is capped at 150. I bet we'll have 120 there this year, which is a pretty good bounce back year for COVID. But the nice thing about that is that with this density and with this hospitality, the speakers are in the room and you're going to be able to rub elbows with some awesome talent. And we can guarantee some great conversations will happen if you're there. I love that. So
that's a good sized conference.
Yeah. And that's going to be, the small conferences are dying. I think that COVID, I hope it hasn't finished them off, but we are Training Day on the 9th, and Nerves Conf is on the 9th, and then the 10th and 11th is Gig City Elixir.
Awesome.
So of May.
Okay, great. And I have a link in the description of this video as well, so check it out. And if you don't follow Bruce, you need to follow Bruce and everything that he's doing. I have all his Twitter handles and his Groxio.io website. So,
and you know what? Let me give you one more bone for your audience. I'm making a command decision. Sorry, Maggie and Paulo. Give me 24 hours and we will get a discount code for your community up.
Wow, that would be amazing. Yeah.
And so we'll hold that open for about a month. It's how about, don't hate me, folks. I'm gonna promise a 40% discount, and that's for our yearly subscription. Has OTP, LiveView, and Elixir courses. The Elixir course is now, it has 60, 80 hours or something like that.
Oh wow!
But it's really, really good.
Thank you. That's amazing. I'm sure people are going to be stoked about that. I really appreciate that. A little Bruce Tate surprise on my own live stream. I love it.
There you go.
But yeah, thank you so much, guys. I hope everyone has a good weekend. For everyone that tuned in live, thank you so much. I think this has been the most active our chat channel has been. Actually, I guess, everyone is raving about your Phoenix book. And you just released a new version is in beta right now, correct? The Phoenix LiveView?
So there's a Programming Phoenix LiveView. That's a different book. That's with myself and Sophie DiBenedetto.
Okay.
And there's just so much to do on the Phoenix framework. We were hoping to take some of that pressure off that team. So hope it works out that way. Hope people receive that and the spirit that it's offered.
Yeah, I'm excited to check it out. I have a habit of buying every Elixir book and trying to read them all.
Hear that? Great work, Sophie. She is the new editor. Well, new, I guess 2 years now for the Pragmatic Bookshelf. So if you want to write, give Sophie a call.
All right. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, guys. And I will see you in the next live stream.